Joining me now, Congressman Jim Jordan from the great state of Ohio, and of course, author of the book, Do What You Said You Would Do, Fighting for Freedom in the Swamp. Congressman, I have to ask you, it's the hot news of the day.
Yeah.
We have some Supreme Court ruling. Apparently, the big employers can't mandate it, but healthcare workers still are stuck with it. What is this mealy-mouthed crap?
Well, I look at the positive, and it's a win for freedom to say that OSHA can't mandate that private employers over, with over 100 employees, that you got to mandate this on your employees. This is a win for freedom. There's the federal government with healthcare workers, and they kind of took a different track there. I haven't read the opinions yet, but I know on the private employers, it was a 6-3 decision, I think. So that is a good sign for freedom, a good sign for liberty, for the Constitution. I thought that's where the Supreme Court would end up, but it's good to see it play out the way it did particularly on our private sector employers.
Congressman, if you're Joe Biden, obviously he's a president, he's a politician, he looks at poll numbers, he's a human being, he understands he's extremely unpopular. Why push so hard on all this mandate stuff to begin with? No matter what you feel about vaccines or whatnot, you point at half the American people and say you're fired if you don't do what I said you would do. That's not going to go over well.
Well, that's it. But he has to, because the left controls his party. Joe Biden, I don't know where he is. It's hard to figure out where he is from day to day. He says one thing, does something else. He's the one who told us a few months ago there would never be a vaccine mandate. And of course, then he imposed it. And here we have the Supreme Court telling him, no, you can't do that. But the hard left controls the Democrat Party, and they're authoritarian. Think about, I always go to the First Amendment and our right to speak under the First Amendment, that today's left says to us, you're not allowed to speak. If you don't agree with me, you're not allowed to talk. And if you try, we're going to call you a racist and we're going to try to cancel you. So that's today's left. They control the party he's in, but the vast majority of Americans get it. I saw in one poll, his approval ratings like 33%. I think the real question is, who are these 33%? Who thinks anything's going right in the country right now under Biden? So, but that's the hard left, and they control the party, and that's why you're seeing the crazy things you are from Joe Biden and the Democrats.
Congressman, Dr. Fauci obviously is a household name, sadly, by this point in time, and he's been, for the large part, in control of the direction the country has taken with COVID-19. You and James Comer released some emails, and they were stunners. What was in those emails?
Well, understand this. Right from the get-go, Dr. Fauci is on notice that this thing came from a lab. He gets an email on January 31st, 2020 from Dr. Christian Anderson. The email says, virus looks engineered. Virus not consistent with evolutionary theory. That is a fancy way of saying this thing came from a lab. So Fauci goes into full tilt, cover his backside. He organizes a conference call. He's doing emails and work at 2 in the morning. Conference call the very next day, February 1st. Other doctors who've been getting our tax dollars that Fauci's been handing out over the years are on that conference call with Fauci and Dr. Collins. And on that call, we now have those emails that are related to that call. And we on these emails, they point out, Dr. Gary, for example, says, I don't know how this happens in nature. This had to come from a lab. So the sentiment on that call is this thing likely came from a lab, but all that changes over the next couple of days. So much so that the people who were on that call, some of these virologists, write in the Nature Medicine publication, they write an article that says, no, it wasn't a lab at all. And then that turns into an article that gets cited in the Lancet, which became the big piece that downplayed the lab leak theory. And it all comes from Fauci and Collins putting the pressure, I believe, on these scientists to do what Fauci and Collins wanted. And the real kicker for me, as we learned this yesterday, is a few weeks after that article appears in February saying it didn't come from a lab, Dr. Fauci awards those same authors, Dr. Anderson, Dr. Gary, the two guys who were most adamant at the start that this thing came from a lab but changed their position. Those two guys get a $9 million grant from Dr. Fauci's organization, from Dr. Fauci's agency. So I think that sort of tells the whole picture, but we need these guys under oath in front of us, these doctors, these virologists coming in answering questions, but we're not going to get that unless the American people put us in charge in November and we're in control of the next Congress.
Congressman, please correct me if I'm wrong here, but Dr. Fauci most definitely is an American, and from what you just described, it sounds like he's running cover for China for some reason. Why?
Because they were doing gain of function research with our tax dollars in the Wuhan lab in China. That's the bottom line. And Dr. Fauci and these scientists didn't want that to get out, certainly not to start, even though all the, anyone with common sense thinks, wow, this, as I said earlier, this came from a bat to a pangolin to a hippopotamus to Joe Rogan. That's what they want us to believe. No. It came from a lab. That's where everything points. So I think he was simply trying to cover his backside. And he got these scientists. Now, this is the scary part. He got these scientists, I think, to write what he wanted to be written. And then Fauci cites that very article in the White House saying, oh, scientists say that this didn't come from a lab. Well, it's the article that you choreographed, you originated, you actually had the ability to influence, and you did. That's the scary thing, how incestual this whole thing is at the expense of the American people.
Hey, thanks so much for watching The First on YouTube. If you liked what you saw, go ahead and like and subscribe. You heard me. Like it, subscribe. You'll get a lot more of it and a lot more of me.